Now, today, the question we're trying to answer is the real reason why your landing page is not converting. And it's nothing to do with, having a good offer, which is important, or changing the color of your call to action button. Those things are important. But what I'm going to talk to you today about is what comes before that, even before you write your messaging, your marketing messaging, the psychology that you need to be using, and the language you need to be using to engage with your customer. So I'm a firm believer of using one idea and expressing it clearly. So the idea we're going to be talking about today is called distance. Apologies if you can't understand my handwriting. Probably diabolical in the camera, or probably too bright, I don't know. But what we're going to be talking about is distance, okay? Just a quick story, and this actually happened last night. So I was in my room, reading, and I heard a knock at the door. And it was these two, well, it was a woman and a gentleman. And they said to me, they were from, it's a charity organization for children, for deaf children. So I opened the door, they introduced themselves. Was a bit nervous, I think, and they asked me a question, and they said, do you think schools should be teaching sign language? And I knew that what they were doing, because it's all psychology, right? So it's basically, if I had agreed, then obviously when they do ask me for the donation, I can't then say no. So what they did is using the commitment and consistency bias or principle to get me to agree to something, and then when I agreed to it, so now that I can't back out of that, I have to agree with them. But I said no anyway. So they said, do you agree that they should teach sign language? And I said, well, if kids need it, then yeah. Then they're like, oh, should you will you donate to us then? So I said no, because I knew that what they were doing. Not that I don't think the work they're doing is not important. I just didn't want to donate, which is, my right. Now, the reason I'm telling you this story is because distance, okay? Remember, this happened in the space of probably 2 minutes or less than that. So when it comes to your landing page, you have to be thinking about distance. And for example, if you look at, let's draw a line here, right? You want your customer, your buyer, to take a desired action over there. And this is where they're currently at. So your customer is, currently there. Bob, the stick man. So he's there, you want him to go there. Now, what a lot of people do in their messaging when it comes to marketing, they ask too much of people too soon. And they don't address these 3 core emotional levers that need to be pulled before somebody says yes. And even if you do have a good offer, it doesn't matter, because the 3 levers I'm going to explain to you, if you don't address those first, it's not going to work, because people are just going to be like, And one of the reasons for that is we live in an age where trust is low. People are more sophisticated, and they're bombarded by all these ads and all these businesses provide saying they can do this, or they're better than that, or they're the best. So the messaging is all the same, and everyone's throwing offers out there, but nobody's addressing these 3 main things. So when it comes to your buyer, there's 3 levers that you need to be addressing. So you need to be addressing their desire. So whatever desire they want, if it's a fitter body, if it's a new car, if it's a course to help them make more money. So it's their desire, then their identification. And what I mean by identification, what that means is, a lot of businesses, when you go online, or whatever, in general, businesses don't identify with the buyer. So they don't identify in terms of speaking or talking about how the problems of their customers. For example, we have to think about it like it's real life. We wouldn't go to somebody's house, knock on their door, and then say, hey, buy my stuff. You know, you listen first, you try to understand where they're coming from. You can't obviously do that online, so the only way you can do that is by identifying their problem. So, oh, do you feel back pains when you wake up in the morning, or do you feel back pains when you get up from your chair from work? So you identify with their problems. So that's a form of identification. Another form of identification is you show them the identity that they want to associate with. So if somebody wants to become, you know, a 1 million a year business owner, or a 1 million a year entrepreneur, that's an identity. Or they want to be in a certain exclusive club. So that's another form of identification that most businesses don't do. So we got desire, we got identification. Now this is one of the most important ones: belief. Right? All of us have beliefs about life. That's how we live our lives, the story we tell ourselves. And some of those beliefs are false. A lot of marketing out there don't address people's belief. They just give their, oh, buy my stuff or buy my product, but they don't actually think, okay, do I need to address the beliefs, that the false beliefs even, that my customers have in their psyche? Because, for example, as I said, the market is sophisticated. People have been burnt. You know, people have been promised X, Y, and Z, and the product it didn't deliver. So people are more skeptical. Yes, and also low trust. Right. So low trust. So before you sell anything, you need to start with where the customer's at. You need to, as the great Robert Collier said in his book, you need to meet the customer or enter the conversation that your customer's already having inside their heads. You know, so whatever conversation, whatever beliefs that they have, you need to start there. Okay, and before you throw your product out there, no matter how good it is, you need to address these things. So, for example, desire, that needs to be like your headline, so you can offer their desired outcome. The identification is, using empathy to understand their problems and saying, hey, do you experience this, or are these symptoms you experience? So you're showing them that, hey, I actually know or understand where you're coming from. And then their beliefs, what false beliefs do they have? Because no matter how good your offer is, in somebody's head they might think, no, I think everything in this niche is full of shit, basically, and it's not going to work for me. So you need to address that to make sure that you build what we called a belief bridge to get them from where they are currently, the beliefs that they have now, and then slowly, incrementally bringing them over to your side. And if you don't address this, then that's why your conversions tank and your products doesn't sell, because we're dealing with people. And that's the thing I see with a lot of marketing nowadays. It's like people are always trying to optimize for AI and this CRM system. All of it is bollocks. And when I say it's bollocks, I don't mean that it's not good. It serves a purpose, but not this. What we need to understand, even if you're a business owner, you need to learn human psychology, because you're dealing with people. You're not selling to aliens. So in order to remember, we're trying to get people to take action. So we must understand how to get them to take the desired action. And if you don't understand human nature, then you're going to struggle, because that's where it starts. Because business is basically economics, which is numbers, psychology, and then technology. If you have those three dialed in, you're not far off. And then obviously research and testing to know what the market's out there saying. But I digress. We will get into all those other topics in another video. But remember how I said about beliefs, how we need to address people's beliefs or their false beliefs even. So a lot of the times people just say, oh, here's my offer X, Y, and Z. So let me draw another line here. So I really think this hold on. I really think this thing is too bright. I don't know if you can see it. I hope you can do. Or maybe it's a little bit too bright. But so here's a line, okay? And I'm going to talk about two things when it comes to belief and where you need to start. So let's put a line there. So you see, it's like 3/4 of the way. 3/4, I think. Yeah, 3/4 of the way. So look, this bit here is called, we would say, the zone of rejection. So as a business, or as, say, you're a marketer, you're a copywriter, whatever, you don't go here. You don't go here because anything you say is just going to be rejected. So if you were to just go in and tell somebody about a product and that it's a miracle and that it can change their lives, but they already had bad experiences and they're like totally never doing that again, your messaging is not going to work. But you also here in this smaller section, you have a little leeway where you have the zone of acceptance. Okay, spelling acceptance wrong here, forgive me. So zone of acceptance, yeah, and that's where, you know, people are they're a little bit more pliable, where you can drop a thought or an idea and they're much more open to not just directly just reject it as soon as you say it. And that's where you need to start. Whenever we're making marketing messaging, we have to start from where the customers or the buyer's belief system is, whether that's right or wrong. And that's where you start, and then you slowly break it down with undeniable proof. But you have to start where their zone of acceptance is. So that means you have to know your customer, and that's the thing, the beauty of it. That's why you have to research and know, okay, where can I enter the conversation where they're not going to totally just blow me out the water and say, fuck no. You know, so that's an important thing to remember here, zone of acceptance. Right, so back to distance. We have to, what a lot of people do, or what a lot of businesses do, is that they only know how to talk to customers who are just sort of ready to buy and they don't need much convincing. But in a case where people don't know about you, they don't know who you are, what you offer, and simply there's no trust there, a lot of businesses don't know how to how to conduct themselves in that type of market. And that's why distance is a problem for them, because, for example, this is a scenario. Let's say somebody types in on Google for weight loss, weight loss, and they're actively looking for weight loss. That means that person, their intention of buying is, is high. They just need, proof, a proof from you showing a new way of you doing things, perhaps, maybe not, but that helps. Or, undeniable proof, social proof of people getting results. So they're ready to buy. So they obviously they need convincing with lots of social proof, but it's not as much as if they didn't know who you were. So a lot of businesses, they thrive on this, where it's like, yeah, if somebody's on Google and they type a solution to their problem into Google, it's gonna, they're not gonna want you to convince them, because they already made their mind up, that they want to solve this problem. Every business rely on that. Most businesses rely on that. But it's like nobody can then go the other way. For example, if you were to then go on to Facebook, which is a social platform which is made for entertaining. So it's not a search engine where people are actually searching for a solution or for your business specifically. So when you're going onto these social platforms, it's a thing of people are not sat around waiting for, oh, I'm just waiting for them to show me this ad. No, people are, stalking their girlfriends or boyfriends, no judgment there. Or they're reading funny memes, or they're sharing a post or uploading something. They're not on there to read ads. So whatever message you put on there, it's a form of interruptive marketing where you're slapping your ad in front of them and interrupting their scroll. In all honesty, so if you're doing that, your approach for somebody who's typing your business on Google or typing a solution needs to be different. You can't use the same messaging you use on Google as you would use to a colder audience on Facebook. So people who don't know you, and there's no trust there. So, and that's what a lot of people do. They make this same approach, or businesses even, they make the same approach how they approach people on Google, this same approach on Facebook. And we got to think, for example, let's say in the home improvement space, if you was advertising on Facebook, you wouldn't then advertise or show a direct offer. You'd be more indirect, right? And when it comes to distance, think about it. Home improvement, when people decide that, okay, we need to revamp our house, or whatever it might be, they're not thinking, oh, as I said, when they're on Facebook, they're not waiting around. So it's like, by you saying, oh, here's a great offer on Facebook, and trying to get them to get a quote or sign up or book, it's not going to work, because that's not where they are in their journey, and that's not the conversation they have in their heads. So it's like, they're here, so let's do Pat and Steve. They're married with kids, and they want to revamp their house, right? So they're here, and they want to revamp their house, as I said, and you want them to take a desired action over there, right? Which is to spend money to get their house revamped. But that's not where they're at yet, and they've seen your ad on Facebook. So it's like, you need to think, okay, what would be the logical step for these people? They are more in information gathering mode rather than saying, yeah, we're going to go with this person. So instead of getting them to jump from here to all the way over here, instead you say, okay, what's the logical step they're going to do? They're going to want information. So you can give them information here. So info. So you can run, obviously you can run a ad with information of how, okay, for example, the headline could say, let's think, don't do any home renovations until you read these 5 steps. I'm just freestyling here, but it's like, you're educating. You're not trying to get them to buy straight away, because that's not where they're at yet. So you're educating, and much more for nurturing. So I want to make this so you can understand. When it comes to advertising, you have to, and when you're thinking about your messaging, you have to think about, okay, Google, which is a search engine where people actually search for a solution, that means they're ready to buy. That's for harvesting. So yes, you can throw your offer at them, and you can be more direct. Whereas if you're advertising on sort of a social platform, for example, Facebook or Instagram, people are not sat around waiting. So those platforms are much more for, and it depends on your business, especially if it's high ticket. If you're selling a high ticket product that costs a lot of money, we're not buying baked beans and bread. These are investments. So people are going to actually take the time out to read things or educate themselves. So think about it. If you're the business, if everyone's trying to sell them from the get-go and trying to get them over to there, and it doesn't work, because people don't make decisions like that. But you're different. You're offering them the info here, and you're not getting them to jump from all the way to over there. You're getting them to just make a little tiny, so it's like a micro yes. So like they see an ad and it's like, download this free report on what to do when deciding whether to revamp your house. And it's a free report and it educates them. That's like what we call reciprocity. So they're gonna feel indebted to you. So when it comes time for them to actually buy, who do you think they're automatically gonna think of, or who do you think you're gonna go to? You, because you've helped them make a decision that won't lose them money. And then what you do, the most important thing is you build trust, right? So when it comes to distance, you have to know where your customer is in their buying journey. You know, are they product aware, where they like, okay, yeah, this is what I need, and they're on Google searching for it? Or they're problem aware, where they know they have a problem, but they're not quite sure of the solution or the product that they need. So it's like, that's important. You need to know, again, the conversation that's happening in their heads. So it's like, when to get people to convert, don't try to get them to jump all the way over there. Just get them to get micro yeses. So when you get the info now, when they get the info, the next step in that info can be, in that buyer's journey, is going to be like, okay, now we're more aware. You can say, okay, free consultation, because they're still going to have questions. Okay, or in home renovation space, it's probably like a free quote, but we're not going to say free quote because everyone says that. You want to be different. So you could say free consultation to discuss, because like, even though they have the information, they're still going to be skeptical. They're still going to have questions. They're still going to want you to they're still going to want you to come out and have a look at their thing and, you know, estimation, and tell them how much you think it's going to cost and X, Y, and Z. So do you see how you're just, each time you're getting micro yeses? And then from there, the next step might be, okay, it's like they've got the info, you've given them a free consultation, and then you can then pitch them on the offer. But it's like, what most businesses do, they just want customers to jump from here to all the way over there without actually giving anything in advance to educate and nurture their customers. And the reason why most people don't do that, a lot of it's to do with lack of knowledge, but a lot of it's to do with it takes more time to do this. You know, give information, educate, nurture. You know, it takes more time, more effort. And to be fair, most business owners, they don't have the time to do that. So I can understand why this happens. But if you're one of them people who say, you know what, I'm going to bite bullet and do it, this is how you actually build trust. And when it comes time for people to, you know, give you the hard-earned cash, it's not going to be difficult for them. And that's how you get their money, because, you know, you build trust, you build that rapport. So it's like, the takeaway from this video, what you got to think is that focus on building trust first before you get people to buy. Yes, you might have the people who are ready to buy. Yes, you can approach them differently, but you also have a whole subset of people or customers who do have a problem, but trust is low and they don't know who to go to, because everyone's doing or offering the same thing or have the same offer, and nobody's trying to build rapport with them. So there's like a huge, what we'd call a underserved market, because nobody's willing to do the extra nurturing or the extra education of customers. So if you do it this way, then that's how you can start going into that market and taking over your market share, and, you know, kicking your competitors out of the way. So distance is important. And what I want you to remember is that not all customers are equal. And when I say that, I mean that people are not equal. I mean, people have are at different stages in their buying journey. Some people want education. Some people know what they want. They know the solution. They're ready to buy. So your messaging has to be different. It can't all be the same. And when it comes to distance, try to get micro yeses instead of the big yes Where you're trying to get them go from A to B in one swoop. Because think about any investment. If you're buying a house or you're buying a car or anything, you're gonna research, you're gonna, because it's like you don't want to lose your money and you don't want it to make the wrong decision. So you got to think how people are thinking in their heads. Okay, so you have to get them to say micro yeses. So it's like they don't feel overwhelmed, or they don't feel like they're being pushed. So ask for less when you're doing your messaging, especially on your landing page. And if you're on Google, and if your landing page is connected to Google, you can then be more direct. You can put your offer, because the intent is higher. But if you're advertising on Facebook, your approach needs to be a bit more indirect, a bit more nurturing, a bit more educational, because people are not yet ready to buy. They're not actively sat on the platform waiting. They're just, they're scrolling. So always remember that. Always remember the distance. How far are you trying to get the customer to go from A to B? But that concludes the video. I hope you found some value in this. In the next video, I'm going to be talking about reactance, which is a psychological principle that we need to be thinking about, especially on our landing pages, where if you tell people to do something, they will reject what you're saying and possibly do the opposite. So it's like, how do we not trigger reactance in people? How can we get them to do the things we want without, triggering their sense of agency? That will be my next video. So if you found this video useful, like, share, subscribe, share with a business owner who you think would do well with this information. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.